Well, good afternoon, Scott Baker.
Mikey Ames, how are you? Time for another edition of Lead Better, our chance to talk about the Admired Leadership Field Note of the Day, which today has a title of Beyond a Recognition of Results. Recognition's a good thing. Results are a good thing, but there apparently is something beyond all of that.
Yes.
And you have already informed me that you have something to share. And that you're gonna share it at some length. So, do I need to get comfortable? Do I need to have like some coffee?
You just need to get comfortable not talking for a little while. I don't know if
this is going to be the hard part. There's 2 points. Was one, I'm very for long stories because I've been known to tell long stories.
I do have a long story. Anytime I hear the word recognition, I think of Steph Curry and a certain thing that he did during his recognition of his first MVP speech, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Steph Curry is from San Francisco, from Oakland. So I grew up in San Francisco, and we would go across the bay to watch Golden State Warriors games when I was a kid.
Okay.
And when we went across the bay and watched them, oftentimes I would see underneath the basket, mopping up sweat, this kid that I knew from high school. He didn't come to my high school. He went to the high school in Dublin across the bay. So he went to Valley Dublin, which just sounds like where Johnny from Karate Kid went to school, right?
Okay, all right.
Valley Dublin. I'm pitching up this guy to be like a jerk because he was, right? So here's this guy who was 2 years ahead of me in school. Mm-hmm. So when I'm a freshman, he's a junior. And so I had to deal with him for 2 years because he was just so hateable, right? When you think about a guy, before the idea of having a punchable face came along, you thought of like Erichhausen, right? So he was a guy that was just a nemesis, and primarily because they beat us so badly in all sports.
So you just would see him on the other team.
Well, I saw him twice a year for the basketball season,
okay,
twice a year in the soccer season, and twice a year in the baseball season. And then if we ever made playoffs, we would see each other a third time. So, I'd seen this guy with the punchable face,
Sure. Now the thing is, just
times.
to everybody here on Lead Better, this is not only a long story, but it's something that has been festering in Mikey's soul for decades now. So there's going to be a point to this story, but participate with us all, because I think this is all therapeutic for Mikey.
There might not be a point to the story. So when we would go to Warriors games, we would see Erichhausen mopping up sweat underneath the basket, because at some point he went to go be a ball boy one day, and the guy said, I can only take one of you, flip a coin. And he and his friend flipped the coin, and it came up heads for Eric to be able to stay. And Eric never left. He kept on mopping up, sweat. And when we were older, like our junior, senior year, when he graduated, we saw that Erichhausen was still mopping up sweat. And we would be like, Erichhausen's still mopping up sweat. We would hate this guy. Right. Me and my friends, we just hated this.
But you had no particular reason to hate him. And here he is doing hard, dedicated work.
We had reasons to hate him. There was one, like the only time my dad ever came to a basketball one time was the time that Erichhausen was lining up on the blocks to get rebounds. And he elbowed my brother on getting a rebound where he clearly did it on purpose. And he elbowed him right in the ribs. And my dad from the stands was like, started barking at Erichhausen and the ref to like keep an eye on. And it's really funny that, my dad didn't get the chance to come to many of our basketball games, but the one time he did, he was like barking at Erichhausen the whole time. So Erichhausen was like this guy.
Which sounds like good, aggressive, dedicated, persistent play to me, but go on.
No. So anyway, he just took on this role among me and my friends as the guy to hate, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't know him very well. He just took on this role, mainly because he beat us in sports all the time. And we hated the fact that he was
so good, yeah.
He continued to be the ball boy, never left. From what I understand, he slept in the stadium for a few years and just continued to work on the maintenance crew.
Wow,
right?
Yeah.
And me and my friends forgot about him completely because, why would you continue to think about this guy? And then in 2015, here we are listening to Steph Curry's acceptance speech for MVP award.
With Coach of the Year and obviously Draymond and Defensive Player of the Year. But, I mean, just the way that we represent across the nation now and across the world is everybody has a hand in it, and you guys are leading that charge. So thank you very much. Love playing for you guys. I got to talk about this guy right quick. Eric Hausen, who's in the back.
Wow, yeah.
He's going to be real embarrassed. we got the best equipment manager in the league. I think these guys would agree.
I should tell you, Eric's not even in the shot. And he doesn't.
Yeah, right.
He's
they cut back and you can't quite.
Guy.
Yeah.
This guy's looking back at him back there. He's behind there.
The best equipment manager in the league.
Yes. So the fact that recognition would come at you from a guy like Steph Curry, because me and the rest of my friends, we were like we're from the Bay Area. We follow Steph Curry. He is, up on our Mount Rushmore for us when it comes to sports figures in the Bay Area. And coming out of his name is Eric Hausen, right? So it forced us to okay, we need to revisit who Eric Hausen is instead of having him implanted in our brain as this guy that we hate. But what it reminded me of is that this recognition of this guy, and as Curry goes on to speak, he doesn't talk about Eric has nothing to he's not results oriented here. He's just talking about who Eric is as a person, right?
Oh yeah.
And what
he's
he does
the kind of guy who'd sleep in the stadium, and who would do whatever it took to get the job done.
And 20 years later, he's still there. Now, I don't think he sleeps in the stadium any longer.
No, right.
But I think he's the longest standing employee of the Golden State Warriors at this time, and he's still with the team. So I don't think there's been anybody who's part of the Warriors organization at this point longer than Eric Hausen is, right?
Then let's put this in the context of the actual field note itself. So the actual field note is saying leaders often will honor people, recognize the results. They'll say, hey, somebody did such a good job. They landed this client. They were able to kind of move the needle on this thing. But sometimes what happens is that those moments are fewer and farther between than the efforts that people are putting in every day. And sometimes those are not markers of actual success, but they're qualities, right? And so when you're actually recognizing people more regularly for certain kinds of qualities, that's even more powerful. If you're only recognizing results, then the field note is saying that this can actually unintentionally undermine the collective spirit of the team, because it makes it feel like the leader only cares about that one thing. You don't really care about the people, about the team, about the effort. Now, we'll get to the issue about whether recognizing effort is something you should do or you shouldn't do. Generally, you shouldn't, and we'll get to why. But it's an interesting perspective to say, if you as a leader are not trying to recognize other facets than just results, you may be coming up short in your role as a leader.
Right. And it might strike you as a little bit odd. So we have this thing in our firm where we end every all hands meeting with just a few minutes to give the opportunity for people to give shout outs. And most of the time when you're sitting there and you haven't prepared for a shout out that you might give, you might be thinking, okay, what has someone done for me recently that's outstanding, right? And it's all it is that we're thinking of is results. Do I have any results? Can I call anybody out for results? And, seldom, even in our firm, do we have someone who just says, for the sake of their character, not because of anything that they've done for me recently, let me call out this person, right? Because everyone wants to have a specific example that was within the last 3 days, which makes it more result oriented than ongoing. Like focusing that acknowledgement specifically on something other than a result really makes a big difference. But a lot of us don't think about it.
Well, some of the qualities that you might recognize are listed in the field note when we think of beyond just effort: courage, learning, persistence, creativity, commitment, resilience, urgency, daring. Those are all kinds of things that you can recognize. And that's really important. Now, we kind of play this trick where we recognize to say that that it's especially important. Well, actually, the way the field note says, the good leaders go out of their way to recognize and acknowledge, both publicly and privately, the underlying sacrifices, qualities, and energies that help to produce results, even when the outcomes are disappointing. Correction, especially when the outcomes are less than desired. Very important.
Right. So to be able to have a culture of recognition that says, even though we didn't get the result that we wanted, let me go ahead and call out what was fantastic about all of this, right? Is something that it's more rare than it should be, right? It should be much more common.
Yeah. Now, this issue of recognizing effort, do you agree? The premise and the advice of the field note is that actually recognizing effort isn't so good in the modern workplace. We can do this for children, right? For kids in school, good effort.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is a field in the book that we wrote on excellent parents. Recognizing effort was actually something that's called out that you should do for kids.
Right. Yes. So with that, right, when you're talking about effort, why wouldn't you do that in the workplace? Well, actually, we kind of presume it. Right, we sort of expect you to be giving effort. We don't want to say we've hired you. You have a degree in the field, the special technical space, and good for you that you actually show up each day and don't just sit there. Right, it's almost patronizing to say you gave good effort. So you have to do something beyond that, which is what they're saying here: is look for those qualities that you can recognize. And guess what? There's not going to be like a sign in the sky or a flashcard that kind of pops up for you to say, hey, let me recognize Mikey for what he did here. I actually have to pay attention. I have to be the kind of leader. Are you that kind of leader?
Right. No, I like it a lot. It reminds me of, when we're choosing resolutions, that we're not just choosing outcome goals, but process resolutions are important to be able to choose as well. This made me think of that. I love the kinship of those thoughts, that it should show up in the way that we recognize people too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know that there's anything particularly controversial in this field note, but my sort of conclusion on it is, this shows me
the controversy is that Eric Hausen might be someone that we root for, and I don't think I've wrapped my head around that yet, right?
Yeah. Well, he might actually watch this episode and be like, that Mikey Ames, he was an SOB.
I think he probably won't even, the most SOB part about it is he won't remember me at all.
He'll be shocked that any of this was even a factor, that he was the demonized person by your high school for so many years. And he had no idea, because he was probably a pretty nice guy even back then.
I completely doubt that. There's
I
no
am
way
definitely
that's true.
I am definitely defending Eric Hausen, who sounds to me like the stand-up guy that he is now, that he probably was then.
Not why I told the story is to create you to be his defender. That makes me sick.
I understand, but you can't always own the outcomes of where your stories go.
Yeah.
So but the thing for me about this field note that is, to me, is not trivial, which is, one of our partners has said that one of the cool things about admired leadership and the behaviors that we teach around so many important things is he's been talking about them for 25 years and he's not tired of it. Yeah. He still gets excited talking about some of these concepts. The stories still ring true. They're currently inspiring. And you also start to see that it is bottomless. And I remember hearing this from a woman who gave a talk, and she was a painter, and she said, and she came to painting late in life. She took a class, and then she was learning about this, and she was interviewing somebody who was an artist in another area, and they go, you can never get to the bottom of it. So whether you're a house painter or whether you cut hair or whatever your specialty is, you start to see there's so much to explore. And when I was editing this field note and looking at it before this conversation, I was like, it just shows you that when you say, am I an inspiring leader? Do I motivate people? Yeah, you could be like, I think I am, right? Well, you have a palette of things at your disposal to paint with in terms of this that is infinite. And if you are able to have this little jolt of a field note every day where you can start to say, let me think about the way that I recognize people, not for results, but for these other qualities. And can I become masterful at that? What a beautiful thing. What an inspiring thing for all of us.
Right. Fantastic. All right.
Dynamite. Thanks,
Love
Mikey.
this one.